When my husband passed away, I decided to start fresh by purchasing a brand new car. The very next morning, my son appeared at my doorstep and snatched the keys from my hand. "You don't need this anymore," he said, his voice carrying a coldness I had never heard before. "I'm leaving town tomorrow with my wife's family, and I'll drop you off at an assisted living facility along the way." I stood frozen in place. My own son, the child I had brought into this world and raised with all the love in my heart, had just declared that I no longer had the right to control my own life. As he drove away in my new car, disappearing down the street, I pulled out my phone and sent him a text message. Just 3 simple words: check the glove box. The moment he read what was inside, he slammed on the brakes, and in that instant, he realized he had just made the most catastrophic mistake of his entire life. But to truly understand why I did what I did, you need to hear the complete story from the very beginning. My name is Eleanor, though everyone has always called me Ellie. I'm 65 years old. Until 3 months ago, I was married to the absolute love of my life. 40 years together. 4 decades filled with laughter, struggles, tears, triumphs, and the beautiful work of building a family from the ground up. My husband was a good man, a dedicated, hard-working soul of the kind they simply don't make anymore. When he died, it felt as though the entire world had stopped spinning beneath my feet. Our house transformed into a mausoleum of memories. Every single corner held a reminder of him. His favorite coffee mug sitting on the counter, his well-worn easy chair in the living room, the lingering scent of his cologne in the bathroom. I found myself trapped in the middle of that deafening silence, completely lost and wondering what on earth I was supposed to do with the rest of my life. The first few days after his death were absolutely unbearable. I didn't want to get out of bed. I couldn't bring myself to eat. I had no desire to see anyone or do anything. But one morning, as I sat staring at a photograph of the 2 of us smiling on a beach, both of us so full of life and joy, I heard his voice in my head, almost as if he were standing directly behind me, speaking softly into my ear. "Ellie," he used to tell me all the time, "as long as there's air in your lungs, there's a reason to keep moving forward. Don't just sit still waiting for life to pass you by. Get out there and truly live it." And he was right. He was always right about these things. So I made a firm decision. I was going to start over completely. I wasn't going to remain locked up in that house, living among ghosts and fading memories like some tragic character in a novel. I was going to honor his legacy by truly living, by embracing life with both arms wide open. And for that, I needed mobility. I needed freedom. I needed independence. I needed a car. Throughout our entire married life, we had always driven the same old gray sedan, a vehicle my husband kept running through sheer mechanical ingenuity, patience, and an almost magical ability to coax a few more miles out of aging parts. But that car died along with him. It broke down completely just 1 week after the funeral, and when I took it to the mechanic, he looked at me with sympathy and told me that fixing it would cost significantly more than simply replacing it entirely. So, with the life insurance money and the savings my husband and I had carefully set aside together over the years, I decided to buy myself a new car. Nothing luxurious or flashy, just something reliable, something safe, something that was truly mine, something that would represent this fresh new chapter of my life. I went to the dealership on a Tuesday morning. The salesman, a friendly young man named Devin Williams, patiently showed me several different models, and then I saw it. A sleek silver sedan, gleaming beautifully under the bright showroom lights. It was absolutely perfect. Compact, easy to drive, and equipped with all the modern safety features I could possibly need. I climbed into the driver's seat and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Real, genuine hope for the future. Devin took his time explaining everything to me, the advanced braking system, the multiple airbags, the comprehensive warranty coverage. And when he finally told me the price, $8,500, I knew immediately that I could handle it. The money was right there, sitting in my account. It was mine. I had earned every single penny through years of hard work and sacrifice alongside my husband. Every dollar represented time we had saved together for a future he would never get to see, but one that I absolutely would experience. I signed all the paperwork that very same day. The car was registered only in my name, Eleanor Vance, sole owner. As I drove away from the dealership in my brand new car, breathing in that fresh upholstery smell and listening to the smooth, gentle hum of the engine, tears streamed down my face. I cried from a mixture of both pure joy and profound sadness. Joy because I was finally taking a real step forward in my healing, and sadness because my beloved husband wasn't there beside me to witness this moment and share in my happiness. But as I drove back home with the warm afternoon sun streaming through the windshield, I knew deep in my heart that he would be incredibly proud of me. I knew this was exactly what he would have wanted me to do, to keep living, to keep moving forward, to honor our life together by not giving up on my own. I arrived home and carefully parked the beautiful car right in front of the driveway. I sat there for a long moment, just looking at it, admiring it. It was beautiful. It was mine. It represented my fresh start and my independence. I took the keys inside and left them on the kitchen counter. Then I called my son Marcus to share the exciting news with him. I wanted him to know that his mother was going to be okay, that I was being strong and resilient, that I was honoring his father's memory in the best possible way I knew how. Marcus didn't pick up his phone, so I left him what I thought was a cheerful voicemail. "Honey, I bought myself a new car. I'm so excited about it. Come over when you can so you can see it in person. I love you so much." I hung up the phone feeling genuinely happy and optimistic, fully expecting him to be thrilled for me, expecting him to understand just how monumentally important this purchase was to my healing process and my independence. I had absolutely no idea that the very next day, my entire life would change forever. I didn't know that my own son was about to betray me in the worst, most unimaginable way possible. I woke up early the following morning. The sun had barely begun to rise when I found myself already in the kitchen, brewing a fresh pot of coffee. I had made pleasant plans for the day ahead of me. I wanted to drive to the supermarket to stock up on groceries, then perhaps stop by my friend Serena Jenkins' house to show her my beautiful new car, and maybe, if I felt emotionally up to it, drive out to the cemetery to visit my husband's grave and tell him all about this new chapter in my life. Yes, I know it might sound silly to some people, talking to someone who is no longer physically present, but it made me feel close to him. It made me feel significantly less alone in this big, empty house. I was finishing my second cup of coffee when I heard a vehicle pull up outside. I looked out the front window and immediately recognized Marcus's car. My heart leaped with genuine joy and excitement. He had come. He must have gotten my message and rushed right over to see me, to see my new car, to share this happy moment with his mother. I smiled widely and hurried toward the door, eager to greet him. But when I opened that door, my smile froze completely on my face. Marcus wasn't alone. Standing beside him, with her arms crossed, was his wife, Tiffany Price. And neither of them was smiling. There was something deeply unsettling in their expressions, in the way they were looking at me, that made me feel distinctly uneasy, as if I were a problem they had come to solve rather than a person they had come to visit. "Hi, sweetie," I said, trying my absolute best to sound cheerful and welcoming despite the growing knot of anxiety in my stomach. "Tiffany, what a pleasant surprise to see you both here so early in the morning. Please, come inside. I just made a fresh pot of coffee." Marcus didn't even bother to acknowledge my greeting. He walked straight into the house with determined, purposeful steps heading directly toward the kitchen. Tiffany followed closely behind him, giving me a glance I couldn't quite decipher, but that sent chills down my spine. I closed the front door and followed them both, feeling the joy I had experienced just moments before rapidly transform into a strange, uncomfortable knot of dread deep in my stomach. Something was very wrong here. I could feel it in my bones. In the kitchen, Marcus stopped abruptly in front of the counter, staring down at my new car keys. He reached out and picked them up, weighing them in his hands as if evaluating their mass and significance. "Mom," he finally said, still without meeting my eyes directly, "we need to have a serious talk." I crossed my arms defensively, trying desperately to ignore the alarm bells that were now ringing loudly in my head. "Of course, honey. What's this about?" He exchanged a meaningful look with Tiffany. She gave him a subtle nod, as if granting him permission to continue. And then Marcus spoke the words that would shatter my world. "Mom, I heard that you bought yourself a car. A brand new one." "I did," I replied, my voice coming out more excited than it probably should have, given the tension in the room. "That's exactly why I called you yesterday. I wanted you to come see it in person. It's absolutely beautiful, Marcus. And it makes me feel so free, so independent. So—" "You don't need it," he interrupted sharply. His words dropped like heavy stones into the middle of my kitchen, creating ripples of shock. I stood there in stunned silence, not fully understanding what I was hearing. "What?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Marcus finally looked directly into my eyes. "You don't need a car, Mom. Not at your age. You don't drive as well as you used to. It's dangerous, both for you and for other people on the road. Plus, it's a completely unnecessary expense. Think about the maintenance costs, the insurance premiums, the gas prices. What's the point?" I felt as though he had physically slapped me across the face. "Marcus, I drive perfectly fine. My license is completely current and valid. I passed all the required tests with no problems whatsoever. And besides, it's my money and my decision to make, not yours." He shook his head slowly, as if he were patiently explaining something obvious to a stubborn, confused child. "Mom, that's not the point here. The point is being practical and reasonable about this situation. Look, Tiffany and I have been discussing this, and we're taking a trip tomorrow with her parents, a family vacation we've been planning for several months now. Our car has been acting up lately, having mechanical issues. But yours is brand new and absolutely perfect for a long drive like this." "Wait," I said, holding up one hand to stop him. "Are you actually telling me that you came here to ask if you could borrow my car?" Marcus gave a short, completely humorless laugh that sent ice through my veins. "I didn't come here to ask for anything, Mom. I came here to tell you that I'm taking it. We need it more than you do right now." Before I could fully process what was happening, before I could even formulate a response or physically react, he closed his hand tightly around my keys. "No!" I screamed, my voice breaking. "Marcus, those are my keys. That's my car. You can't just—" But he was already walking with determined strides toward the front door. Tiffany followed him like a shadow, completely ignoring my protests and pleas as if I weren't even there. "Marcus, stop this right now!" I shouted, following them both. "You absolutely cannot do this. Give me back my keys immediately." He paused at the threshold and slowly turned to look back at me. What I saw in his eyes at that moment completely broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. There was no love reflected there. No warmth, no respect, no recognition of our bond, only cold impatience and something that looked disturbingly like contempt. "Mom, enough with the unnecessary drama," he said in a voice so cold and detached that it didn't even sound like my son anymore. "You don't need this car. You don't need any of this. You're living all alone in this huge house, clinging desperately to old memories like some kind of shrine. It's not healthy for you. It's not good for your mental state." "What are you saying to me?" I whispered, my voice barely managing to escape from my constricted throat. "Tiffany and I have been talking extensively about your situation," Marcus continued in that same clinical, detached tone. "And we both genuinely think it would be significantly better for you to consider moving to a more appropriate living arrangement, somewhere like an assisted living facility. There are some really excellent ones in the city that cater specifically to people in your situation. You would be properly looked after by trained professionals. You would have companionship with people your own age. You wouldn't have to worry about anything, maintaining this big house, cooking, cleaning, any of it. And when we get back from our trip next week, we can go look at several facilities together and start the process. In fact, it would be very convenient. I can drop you off at one of them on our way out of town tomorrow. That way, you can get a feel for the place while we're gone. The entire world stopped spinning. My son's words echoed in my ears, but I genuinely could not believe what I was hearing. An assisted living facility. He was actually telling me to leave my home, the home I had shared with his father for decades, to leave all my memories, my entire life, my independence, to essentially become a burden that other people would have to care for like a helpless child. Marcus, I said, my voice trembling uncontrollably now, I don't need to be in any kind of facility. I'm perfectly fine right here in my own home. This is my house, the house your father and I built our life in together. I'm not leaving it. He sighed heavily, as if my completely reasonable resistance was just another tedious inconvenience he had to deal with. Mom, please don't make this significantly harder than it absolutely has to be. We're taking the car whether you agree or not. We'll be gone for about a week. When we get back, we'll sit down and talk calmly about your situation and what needs to happen next. This is for your own good. And with those final, devastating words, he simply walked out of my house. Tiffany followed without saying a single word to me, without even making eye contact. I ran after them both, my heart pounding. Marcus, no. Please, I'm begging you. I shouted desperately, tears beginning to stream freely down my cheeks. That car is mine. I bought it with my own money. Money your father and I saved together. You cannot just take it like this. But he was already opening the driver's side door of my beautiful new car, my silver car that represented freedom and independence and a fresh start. He was already getting in, completely ignoring my cries. Marcus, I'm begging you as your mother. I screamed, my voice breaking with emotion. Please don't do this to me. I'm your mother. Doesn't that mean anything to you anymore? He paused for just one brief second. For one fleeting moment, I genuinely thought he was going to come to his senses, that he would suddenly remember exactly who I was and what I meant to him, that he would remember everything I had done for him throughout his entire life. But then he simply got into the car, started the engine with a roar, and drove away, just like that. He drove off with Tiffany sitting smugly in the passenger seat, with my keys clutched in his hand, with my car, with my dignity, with everything. I stood alone in the middle of the driveway, watching helplessly as my silver car disappeared down the street and around the corner. The tears were falling freely now, unstoppable. My entire body was shaking violently. I genuinely could not believe what had just happened to me. My own son, my flesh and blood, had just robbed me, humiliated me in my own home, and essentially told me that I was completely useless and didn't deserve independence or respect. I stumbled back into the house, barely able to see through my tears, and closed the door behind me. I collapsed onto the living room sofa, and there, in that silent living room that was so full of memories of a life that no longer existed in the same way, I cried. I cried for the loss of my car and my independence. I cried for the betrayal I had just experienced. But most painfully of all, I cried for the son I felt I had just lost forever. I don't know exactly how long I sat on that sofa crying. Maybe it was only minutes. Maybe it was hours. Time completely ceased to have any real meaning. All I could feel was a deep, profound ache in my chest, as if something fundamental inside me had shattered into irreparable pieces. And perhaps something had indeed broken. The image I had always held of my son, the absolute trust one had always maintained, the unconditional love that a mother holds for her children no matter what they do or how old they get. But then, in the very middle of that emotional darkness, something began to shift inside me. I stopped crying. I wiped the tears away roughly with the back of my hand, and I felt something completely different beginning to grow in my chest. It wasn't sadness anymore. It wasn't despair or helplessness. It was fury, a cold, calculating, purposeful rage that began to systematically replace the pain and grief. Because as I sat there in that empty house, I suddenly remembered something extremely important, something that Marcus didn't know about, something that was about to change absolutely everything. I wasn't some foolish, helpless old woman who could be pushed around and manipulated. I had lived 65 full years on this earth. I had raised a son practically single-handedly, while my husband worked exhausting 16-hour shifts to keep us afloat financially. I had managed a home, a complex budget, an entire life full of responsibilities and challenges. And over all those decades of living, I had learned one fundamental, crucial lesson. You always have to be prepared for the worst possible scenario. You always need to have a backup plan firmly in place. When I bought that beautiful car just days ago, I didn't simply sign the papers, shake hands, and happily drive home thinking everything would be perfect forever. No, I had been careful. I had been smart and cautious. Because even though I desperately wanted to believe that my son was fundamentally a good man, even though I wanted to think he would never deliberately hurt his own mother, I had noticed certain signs over recent months. Small signals and warning indicators that I had actively chosen to ignore because it was so much easier not to see them, not to acknowledge the uncomfortable truth they were pointing toward. I had noticed the way Tiffany looked around my house during her visits, carefully assessing its value like a real estate appraiser rather than a family member. I had noticed the way Marcus asked surprisingly specific questions about his father's life insurance policy, about my savings accounts, about my plans for the future and the house. Comments that seemed casual and innocent at the time, but that in retrospect didn't seem nearly so casual or innocent anymore. So after I bought the car and drove it home that first day, I did something else, something additional that I didn't tell Marcus or anyone else about. Something that at the time seemed almost like paranoid overreaction, but which I was now profoundly grateful I had done. I visited an old friend, Walter Pierce. Walter had been a close friend of my husband's for over 30 years. He was an excellent attorney with a stellar reputation. When I went to his office and told him that I had just bought a new car and that I had certain specific concerns about my son's behavior and intentions, he didn't judge me for being suspicious. He didn't tell me I was being paranoid or overreacting or imagining things. He simply listened carefully and took me seriously. Ellie, he told me that day, sitting behind his impressive dark wood desk in his professional office, if you have doubts and concerns about this situation, it's absolutely better to be properly prepared than to be caught off guard. Prevention isn't the same thing as mistrust, it's actually intelligence and wisdom. And then Walter helped me. He helped me prepare a comprehensive set of documents, important legal documents that would protect my interests and make my position crystal clear. Documents that established beyond any doubt who owned that car. Documents that outlined clear, serious consequences for anyone who tried to take what was legally and rightfully mine. Walter prepared a notarized letter bearing his official seal and signature, carrying full legal weight. The letter explained everything in precise legal language. The car was registered solely and exclusively in my name. Anyone who took it without my explicit written permission would be committing a serious felony, specifically grand theft auto, and I, as the legal owner, had every right under the law to file criminal charges and pursue full prosecution. Furthermore, Walter attached certified copies of several crucial documents: the car's official title, the vehicle registration showing my name only, and my current valid driver's license. All of it served as ironclad proof that I was fully capable, mentally competent, and legally entitled to own and operate that vehicle without any restrictions whatsoever. But that wasn't the end of it. Walter also prepared another document for me, one that genuinely hurt my heart to sign, but which I knew was absolutely necessary given the circumstances: an official amendment to my last will and testament. In the original will that I had created years ago alongside my husband, Marcus was listed as the primary heir. The house, the savings accounts, everything we had built together, all of it was designated to go to him when I eventually died. But after seeing those warning signs over recent months, after feeling that persistent uncomfortable sensation in my stomach every single time Tiffany asked pointed questions about money and assets, I decided to make a radical change to that arrangement. In the new will, I removed Marcus completely from the inheritance. Not as punishment, I carefully explained to Walter, but as protection. If anything unexpected happened to me, I absolutely did not want Tiffany and Marcus to benefit financially from my death in any way. Instead, I wanted my assets to go to carefully selected charities, organizations that genuinely helped senior citizens maintain their dignity and independence, animal shelters that did important rescue work, places that would truly do something meaningful and good with that money rather than simply spending it selfishly. Walter included an official copy of that new will in the complete document package. And finally, we prepared one more critically important thing, a sworn declaration signed by me and officially notarized by Walter himself. In this declaration, I clearly stated for the legal record that I was in complete control of my mental faculties, that I was not being coerced or manipulated by anyone, and that any attempt by anyone to have me declared mentally incapable or to force me into an assisted living facility against my clearly expressed will would be considered elder abuse under the law and would be vigorously contested through every legal avenue available. Walter also attached the results of a recent comprehensive medical examination that conclusively showed I was in perfectly good physical and mental health for a woman of my age, fully capable of making my own decisions and living independently. I carefully placed that entire packet of documents, that complete legal arsenal I had assembled, into a large manila envelope. And I placed that envelope in the glove box of my brand new car on the very first day I brought it home, the day before Marcus came to steal it from me. At that moment, when I placed those documents in the glove box, part of me genuinely hoped I would never actually have to use them. Part of me prayed desperately that I was completely wrong about my son, that my concerns were unfounded. But another part of me, the wiser, more experienced part that had learned over 65 years to be cautious and prepared, knew it was absolutely the right decision to make. Now, sitting on my living room sofa with my eyes swollen and red from crying, I remembered all of it with perfect clarity. And a bitter, knowing smile slowly appeared on my face. Marcus thought I was just a foolish, helpless old woman. He thought he could simply take whatever he wanted from me and that I wouldn't do anything about it, that I would just accept it. He thought I was weak, easily manipulated, that I had essentially given up on life and would accept any treatment. But he was completely, utterly wrong. I stood up from the sofa with renewed determination, walked into the kitchen, and poured myself a tall glass of cold water. I drank it slowly, deliberately, feeling the cold rage and hurt transform into solid, unshakable determination and resolve. I picked up my cell phone from the kitchen counter and looked at it for a long, contemplative moment. I knew Marcus must be on the highway by now, probably already an hour into his drive. They were most likely headed to Tiffany's parents' house, which was located in another state entirely, approximately a 3-hour drive from my home. They were probably laughing together right now, celebrating how easy it had been, how pathetically weak his mother was, how they had just gotten themselves a free brand new car for their family vacation. Tiffany was probably telling Marcus at this very moment how simple it had been to manipulate me, how utterly pathetic and helpless I was. I opened the messaging app on my phone and found Marcus's contact information. My fingers trembled slightly over the screen, not from fear or sadness, but from pure anticipation. I knew exactly what I was about to do. I knew precisely what effect my message would have. And although the part of me that would always be a mother felt genuine pain about what was coming, the other part, the part that deserved respect and dignity and fair treatment, knew it was absolutely necessary. I typed 3 words. Only 3 simple words. Short, direct, but charged with a weight that Marcus couldn't possibly imagine yet. Check the glove box. That was it. Nothing more. I didn't add any explanations. I didn't add any threats or warnings. I didn't add any emotional appeals. Just those 3 simple, powerful words. I hit send. The message went out instantly. I watched as it marked itself as delivered, and then moments later as read. I imagined Marcus driving on the highway in my car, hearing his phone's notification sound. I imagined him glancing at the screen, perhaps with Tiffany asking him who was texting. I imagined him reading that brief, mysterious message and being genuinely confused at first. Check the glove box. What could his mother possibly mean by that? What was she talking about? I sat down at the kitchen table with the phone still in my hand, waiting patiently. My heart was beating fast but steady and strong. There was absolutely no turning back now. I had thrown the first stone, and very soon indeed, Marcus was going to realize that he had completely and catastrophically underestimated his mother. He was about to discover that the woman who had given birth to him, who had raised him with love and enormous sacrifice, was also a woman who knew exactly how to defend herself. A woman who would not allow anyone, especially not her own son, to walk all over her with impunity. 5 minutes passed. Then 10 minutes. Each minute felt like an hour. Then my phone suddenly vibrated in my hand. It was Marcus. He was calling me. I didn't answer. I simply let it ring and ring until it eventually went to voicemail. He called again immediately. And again. And again. 5 consecutive calls, all of which I deliberately ignored. I wanted him to feel exactly what I had felt earlier. The powerlessness. The desperation. The slow and terrible realization that he had completely lost control of the situation. Finally, he stopped calling, and a text message arrived on my screen. "Mom, what is this? What does all this mean? Please call me back right away." I didn't reply. I just sat there, watching the screen. Another message arrived moments later. "Mom, this has to be some kind of mistake. Can we please talk about this? Please call me." I didn't reply to that one either. I remained silent and still. And then came the message I had been waiting for, the message that confirmed he had read through all the documents in that envelope, that he had seen everything Walter and I had prepared, that he finally understood the full magnitude of what he had done and the consequences he was facing. The message read, "Mom, please don't do this. It was a mistake. A terrible mistake. I'm so sorry. We can fix this, I promise. Please don't call the police. I'm begging you." I read those words over and over, slowly and carefully. I could feel the panic emanating from every single letter, the desperation, the fear. And although a part of me, that eternal maternal part that never fully dies no matter what, felt a pang of pain seeing my son in such distress, the other part, the one that had been betrayed and humiliated and treated like garbage, felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Now he knew. Now he finally understood that his actions had real, serious consequences. I let another full 10 minutes pass before replying. I wanted him to truly sweat it out. I wanted every single second of silence to remind him powerfully of what he had done to me. Finally, I wrote back, "Return the car to my house. Now. Immediately." His reply came instantaneously. "I'm 3 hours away from you right now. I'm turning around immediately. I'll be there as soon as humanly possible. I promise you, Mom. I'm coming right now." I put the phone down on the table and leaned back in my chair, taking a deep breath. A strange, complicated feeling washed over me. It wasn't joy or happiness. It couldn't be, when it involved my own son suffering consequences. But it was something very close to justice, to vindication. I had spent my entire adult life being gentle, being understanding, being the absolutely perfect mother who always forgave everything no matter how hurtful. And look where that had gotten me, treated like an obstacle, like something disposable, like someone whose feelings and rights didn't matter at all. I went to my bedroom and stood in front of the mirror, really looking at myself. I saw a 65-year-old woman with gray hair, wrinkles around her eyes that told stories of both laughter and tears, and hands that had worked incredibly hard throughout her entire life. But I also saw something else reflected back at me. I saw genuine strength. I saw dignity. I saw someone who absolutely was not going to give up or give in. My husband had always told me I was so much stronger than I thought I was. I wished desperately that he could see me right now in this moment. I wished he could see his wife finally defending herself. I think he would be incredibly proud. I changed my clothes, putting on a deep forest green dress that my husband had given me years ago for our anniversary. I carefully styled my hair and applied a little lipstick. If I was going to have this crucial confrontation with my son, I was going to face it with complete dignity and self-respect. I wasn't going to be the broken, shattered woman he had left crying helplessly on the sofa just hours ago. I was going to be the woman who had taken full control of her own life. While I waited for Marcus to arrive, I called Walter Pierce. I needed him to know what was happening, to be aware of the situation. He answered on the second ring, his voice calm and professional as always. "Ellie," he said warmly, "what can I do for you today?" "It happened, Walter," I told him, my voice steady and clear. "My son took the car exactly as I feared he might. But he found the documents in the glove box, and now he's driving back here. He should arrive in a few hours." There was a moment of thoughtful silence on the other end of the line. Then I heard him sigh deeply. "I'm genuinely sorry that you were right about this, Ellie. Nobody ever wants to be proven right about something like this involving their own child." "I know," I replied quietly. "But now I need to know what happens next. What are my options?" Walter patiently explained the entire situation to me. Technically and legally, Marcus had committed a serious felony, specifically grand theft auto. Even though he was my son, being family didn't change the fundamental legal facts one bit. I had every legal right to file an official police report and press charges if I chose to. But I also had the complete right not to press charges if I didn't want to. The decision was entirely mine to make, and no one could force me either way. The important thing, Walter emphasized, was that Marcus now knew with absolute certainty that I had that power over him. He knew I had all the legal tools necessary to hold him fully accountable for his actions. "I want him to come here and talk to me face to face," I told Walter firmly. "But I need you to keep your phone available and close by, just in case the situation escalates or I need legal advice." "Of course," he replied immediately. "I'll keep my phone right here with me. Call me for absolutely anything, any reason at all. And Ellie," he added warmly before we ended the call, "you are a remarkably brave woman. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise." His words filled me with a warmth and validation I hadn't felt all day. Thank you, Walter. Thank you not just for all the legal help, but for genuinely believing in me when I needed it most. I hung up and checked the clock on the wall. Marcus had said he was 3 hours away when I texted him. That meant he would arrive at approximately 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was barely 2 o'clock now. I had time to prepare myself mentally and emotionally, time to decide exactly what I was going to say to him, time to strengthen my resolve for what was coming. I went to the kitchen and made myself a cup of tea. Not because I particularly wanted tea, but because I desperately needed something to do with my hands, something to keep me busy and focused. While the water boiled, I thought deeply about all the many times I had sacrificed something important for Marcus throughout his life. All those countless sleepless nights when he was a baby and I walked the floors with him. All the times I had put his needs completely before my own without a second thought. The summers when I worked 2 different jobs simultaneously so I could afford to pay for the music lessons he desperately wanted. The many times I had defended his questionable decisions to other people because he was my son, and that's simply what mothers do. They protect their children no matter what. And I thought specifically about Tiffany and how she had entered our lives approximately 5 years ago. How from the very start, there was something about her that made me deeply uneasy, though I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. She wasn't openly cruel or obviously rude to me, but there was a distinct coldness in her eyes, a calculating way of evaluating everything and everyone strictly in terms of monetary value. I remembered with painful clarity the first time she had come to my house for dinner. How she had walked slowly through all the rooms as if she were a professional appraiser evaluating the property's worth rather than a guest in her boyfriend's mother's.